Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for joining us once again on the State of Freedom.
The State of Freedom is a listener-supported podcast. We're committed to pursuing the truth about policymaking, decisions, and situations in Louisiana and at the national level that stand to impact our freedoms.
Please become a monthly supporter of the State of Freedom at freedomstate.us as we continue to expand the voice of liberty across Louisiana and beyond. Pokey Claw, right here in Mid-City in Baton Rouge. It's Baton Rouge's newest claw machine arcade. Jenin absolutely loves it. Packed with Pokemon gear and fun for all ages. You got to go to Pokey Claw. I love it. Jenin wants to go there every Saturday. It's just a wonderful place to go for the family, for the kids. Pokey Claw. I went to Red Zeppelin yesterday with my second oldest son, Eli, and I got this large veggie pizza, which is the best in Baton Rouge. Red Zeppelin is the best kept secret, but because of us, it's really not a secret anymore. Anybody who has not been to Red Zeppelin on Perkins Road in Baton Rouge, you're truly missing out. The best environment, the best service, and the best pizza in the state of Louisiana. Go to Red Zeppelin today. Tell them the State of Freedom sent you.
Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the State of Freedom, where we are grounded in faith in the Constitution. We're committed to giving voice to the truth, living with courage, and taking action. It is Tuesday, February 10th at 10 a.m. Central. I'm Danielle Walker, and I'm joined by my friend and co-host, the watchdog in chief of Louisiana Citizen Advocacy Group, Chris Alexander, who has been busy watchdogging already this week. Morning, Chris.
Good morning, Danielle. How are you?
I'm good.
There was a bone down there at the legislature, and I had to go get it yesterday. It was a great day, though. We had fun, and we'll talk about it after our great guest goes off. But it was exciting.
Awesome. Thanks, Chris. We are coming to you live on Voice of the People TV and Voice of the People USA TV and Radio Network on Rumble, X, YouTube, and Facebook. And you can always catch us later on Spotify and Apple Podcast, along with all of our audio-only platforms. Joining us today is our good friend, Matt Meck. Let me bring him forward. Morning, Matt. I don't know if y'all can hear, but there's road construction that just decided to start with the jackhammer right outside my window. So everybody might be a party to that today. Enjoy. But for Matt's introduction...
Well, it's good.
Yeah, Matt is a patriot through and through. He's a relentless warrior and a voice for election integrity. He has been a longtime friend of the show, with us since the beginning, and has done more for the State of Freedom than we can ever thank him for. He's got his finger on the pulse of the info war, and he is the host of On Tap with PPN on Rumble daily at 6 p.m. Central. So if you're not following him, I highly recommend that you put his show in your subscriptions. Morning, Matt. Welcome to the show.
Absolutely.
Good morning. Hey, well, that's the, you used to say when you hear jets at an air station, a Marine Corps air station or something, the sound of freedom, the jackhammers are the sounds of jobs, right? So people are working.
Right. That's right. And hopefully it means that I'll be able to drive down the road at some point in the future with a cup of coffee in my hand and no fear.
Yeah, right.
Funny story, real quickly. A friend of mine, I was deployed overseas, and I was talking about the, I'll use the words I used, the stupid woman in New Mexico who had the hot coffee and it spilled on her lap because she had it between her legs. And I said, if that's where you're going to put your coffee, well, you get what you deserve. And one of the guys in the squadron, a fellow aviator, he goes, that was my grandmother. And I said, well, okay, but still stupid.
Right.
That's rough, Matt. We've all been there. We've all been in that moment.
Most people do not double down in that situation, Matt.
Sometimes you just got to own it, though. I mean, she didn't become unstupid.
I was like, well, if you put it right there in a car, I mean, I've done it before in college, and all over like white corduroys, like son of a gun. But hey, it was on me. It was on me.
White corduroys. That's a discussion for another day.
Hey, that was 1983.
All right. Well, look, let me get into the scripture of the day before we start talking about all that's going on in the world around us. Today's passage is Romans chapter 2, verses 6 through 8, and it says, "He will give to each one in return for what he's done. For those living in constant goodness and doing what pleases him, seeking an unfading glory and honor and imperishable virtue, will experience eternal life. But those governed by selfishness and self promotion, whose hearts are unresponsive to God's truth and would rather embrace unrighteousness, will experience the fullness of wrath." And I was reading that this morning and just thinking, we're living in a time of 24/7 psychological warfare where it can be super difficult, if not completely impossible, to determine who's working for good and who's working for evil. But the Lord has made it so that we can see the fruit of people. So don't forget that people tell us who they are by what they produce, for good or for bad. And because no one except Jesus is perfect, we all often, at least I do, find myself with the choice to take the good that people offer and leave the bad. The great thing that takes the pressure off, and I was just encouraged by this morning, is that it's not our place to judge whether people are on the side of good or evil. I mean, we get to judge insofar as it determines how close we allow them to get to us, how much we allow them to speak into our lives and influence our decisions. But other than that, we're not there to judge them. And I find the scripture is a great reminder of that the Lord fully sees and knows each of our hearts, and only he knows what drives and motivates people. And he's going to sort it out, judge it, and repay it in full in the end.
And isn't it a great relief,
Yeah.
Danielle, to know that we're not charged with the responsibility of judging the disposition of another person's heart and soul before God? I
Yeah.
wouldn't want that responsibility.
No.
So thank you, Lord, for that. And we have to remember, Danielle, that we see only we see only a very small fraction of the total person. We don't know really what's going on deep down inside. But as you
Yeah.
said, we can judge by the fruits, and we have a responsibility to battle against the effects of what we're seeing, and that's what we're doing. And a real warrior with us today, the one and only Matt and Meck. Matt, pre-show, I was sitting here, with you, talking with you, and I was saying, you know what? I would have had you on the State of Freedom today just so I could admire your tapestry behind you because, as you know, my
My
dad was a
propaganda.
U.S. Marine and he had a tapestry exactly like that. And he prized that above all else, almost all else, almost all else. So, welcome to the show, Semper Fidelis, Matt. Always a pleasure.
Semper Fidelis. And, you talked about 5GW,
Mhm.
that Battle for the Mind. I recommend to the audience if they haven't. It was a 3-part series that General Flynn and Boone Cutler, who is now passed, sadly, about a week after Charlie Kirk, and something you said both about judging and so forth, not in our place. Boone Cutler would say, when you see a bumper sticker on a car in front of you that, I don't know, save the trees, right?
Mhm.
But you're like, oh, yeah, it's some wacko demo. He says, maybe it's because they, honest to gosh, love forestry or something.
Yeah.
Instead of letting the amygdala, that part of the brain that focuses on the instinctive, emotive aspects. We do have a frontal cortex, and I was choking some people online. They were immediately going to Orange Man bad, this about
Mm.
elections, and I said no. I said go back to the lostinterview.com. Look at Vote Scam, the Collier brothers. This has been these people who came from a left of center perspective. They found terrible voting irregularities in the 1970s. And then that interview, again, the lostinterview.com, 2 February 1996, you would swear to God he was teleported to 2020 and was
Wow.
telling you what he saw in 2020, 2 February 1996, way
Wow.
before Trump got on the scene.
Yeah, yeah, and Mark Cook has strongly everywhere he goes, including in his recent passage through Louisiana, Matt, where we and other groups secured 5 or 6 speaking engagements for him, a couple of Zoom calls, and really was wildly successful. And what a blessing he is You may have been the one who originally connected us
Yep.
to Mark, and thank you for that. But what a powerhouse and what a patriot he is.
He just talked about the great. I talked with him daily, and he great experience there in Louisiana. I think now he's in Alabama. Actually, had some legislators and election officials thank him for presenting there in Alabama.
Amazing.
Then he's off to Florida. I think he's got 5 or 6 there. Then he's in Georgia. That'll be fun with what's going on here in Georgia.
No kidding.
Then South Kakalaki, North Kakalaki. I know it's Carolina. When I was stationed there, we used to call it North Kakalaki. And heading up to Maine by the end of this year.
Yeah. So I want to thank, just for a second, and I just want to thank We the People, Bayou community. I want to thank Women Republican Club of New Orleans. I want to thank Louisiana Republican Assembly. All of the groups that came together to ensure that Mark's trip here. I want to thank
And the
Remnant,
Yeah.
Sylvia Janes, who put it together just on a dime, very successfully right here in Baton Rouge. I don't think we could have asked for better results for Mark, and I'm just so thankful that he was here, Matt, because education is so important when it comes to securing our election system. There's still a lot of people out there who think everything is perfectly fine.
And his presentation is so good. He's not, he doesn't get emotional about it the way that maybe some of us will get emotional with this topic because, and I don't know how he does it, honestly, because he's been talking about it so long. And I think about how long we've talked about it, Chris, on this show and even before the show. And you think about, we wonder, are these people, like especially legislators, are they just willfully ignorant? Are they willfully ignorant? Are they lying? What is the deal? But he approaches each presentation as if no one has ever heard of this before. And it's just, it was really powerful for us in our community. I will say that.
And one thing that you're exactly right, Danielle, and one thing, and then we can move on here, but I want to say this, and Matt, and then I want to hear you. But I just want to say that Mark, I really like the fact that he's able to adjust his presentation as he moved along to the different groups. He would ask a series of questions before he would begin his presentation to get a real clear understanding of what level his audience was on this issue. And he would sort of tailor his message to their level of understanding, which is really, really important when you're talking about something sort of as esoteric as election security and these voting machines. Anyway, Matt, what say you?
Oh, I was going to amplify that. I was just going to say something he talks about on our Friday coalition calls and other times he's engaged. He says, especially for the folks who are just waking up and seeing it. And he, on his X account, Patriot Mark Cook, at Patriot Mark Cook, there's a gentleman who was his own podcast, probably was believed that the elections were fine and good and thought Trump was lying about everything. And we're seeing this stuff in Fulton County, and you could see this force fields coming down, and the realization that, oh my gosh, is something's not right. And so Mark would always say, those folks who are coming over are now beginning to at least open their eyes, embrace them, welcome them. Don't say, see, I told you so, you should have been here. No. Yeah, thank God you're waking up, because this is not a Republican issue. It's not a Democrat issue. This is a we the people. Because when you get to the back, you said we the people earlier, Chris, just moments ago. Think about it. As I know, you had General Holt on here. It's not R versus D. It's we the people. No. You call it what you want. City of London, Basel, who, WEF, as Peter Sutton calls it, WEF Rock now. That's the real battle, right? Look past the false dichotomy of R versus D, male versus female, gay versus straight. It's we the people versus those who want to control we the people.
Very, very true, and very well said, Matt. The vast bulk of people, if you asked them, do you want your elections to be fair? Do you want the results of your elections to reflect the will of the people, legitimately and honestly? And the overwhelming majority would say yes. It's only the elite cabal that has so arrogated to itself the authority to determine our destiny, legitimately or illegitimately, that is trying to destroy the fabric of our society. But it's not most people, Matt.
Yeah, I agree. I
Yeah.
agree. I mean,
I have to
look
ask you
at the
about.
voter. I mean,
Go ahead. Yeah, I'm sorry.
Senator Thune's got to get off the dime, but look at most people. It's like an 83% overall number. Voter ID, Democrat,
Yeah.
Republican, doesn't matter. It about averages 83% of the American electorate says yes, voter ID.
Yeah. So Matt, we're going to get to that, but I got to ask you right now, Tina Peters. It's very rare that I wake up in the morning and I don't, at some point in the morning, think about her and think about what she's going through and the gross miscarriage of justice. I think you put up very recently that she's now been in jail longer than Americans were held hostage by the Iranians. Can you tell us if you have any new insights on Tina's situation and where it stands right now?
Yeah, well, yesterday she's been in prison 493 days. Today it's 494 days. Those of us who are old enough to remember, I remember waking up from knee surgery in November of '79. Day two of the Iranian hostage crisis. Thought that won't last long. 444 days later, and I became good friends with one of the hostages, a uh, Marine who uh, became an officer. He was at our ROTC unit as a MESEP. It's enlisted becoming officers. But I wanted to make that point is that was such a seminal moment in our country, and Altina has surpassed that. Right, she's now 494 days as a political prisoner, and I don't have anything earth-shattering except for um, folks need to know her attorneys and some of the folks there who think about her every day in the administration said, 2020 Tina is critical. Getting 2026 right is pivotal, right? If we don't get 2026 being free, fair, verifiable elections, their words, not mine. Trump knows he's in House. We lose the House. We lose the Senate. Trump's impeached. Trump's convicted. Trump goes to
Yeah.
Rikers. You go to jail. You go to jail.
Yeah.
A lot of us in this election integrity effort go to jail, and that Tina is an important part of that. And I did text somebody who is in the administration, and they acknowledged back. They know what's going on. I let them know. I said, the base supports 47 and this one particular person. I don't want to give his name out in confidence, but I said this thing with Tina Peters, to me, it looks like the albatross which is around Kennedy's neck, not Kennedy, Carter's neck, in that 1980 election, and the base probably, I would say, there's no more singular important topic than, in the words of Brian Kennedy, have the U.S. Marshal show up there, get her out. She becomes a federal witness in an election investigation at the federal level. She's still in custody. She's in federal custody. She's a federal witness. So people are aware, and my only I guess conjecture, Chris, is that I think there's some dominoes that are going to fall here. I know from folks in Georgia and folks who briefed Tulsi and others, what you're going to see come out of there is, and even in the words of John Solomon, is going to blow your mind. And there's a specific reason why Tulsi is in charge of this, because she's in charge of intelligence for all of the all the 17 or so, is actually I think about 18 intelligence agencies. And this was not just how we might remember in Louisiana or Albany, New York, the backroom scheming of politicians. This goes into a foreign aspect. This goes into domestic people who were engaged with foreign actors. I think you're going to see this become much more expansive and explosive, and why Tulsi is the right person. And thank God she's there. And look at the attacks she's getting from the establishment. She's over the target. And I know it's a little crass to say, but I would say she has more balls in that administration than most other guys.
Seems like, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And Matt, I was looking at Joe Altman's X account this morning, and about probably late last night or something, he posted a picture of 20 or more black SUVs at what appears to be, I think, what I could gather from what he was saying, a DHS command center south of Denver that's close to his office. What do you make of that? He said that arrests are coming. What do you think he means when he says that? And you got any insight into what might be happening there?
Um, do I have any insight? No. Do I have any thoughts? Yeah,
Sure.
I think Trump, much like he did with Maduro and he has tried what he's done with Waltz and Fry up in Minnesota. He's trying every way to do this a a calm way, a reasonable way, and I think what he's showing is he's exhausting all options before something draconian is going to take place. And I, I can't help but think those. I don't think it's a DHS crackdown on illegal immigrants. I doubt
Yeah.
it. I think there's going to be something um, forthcoming. And matter of fact, we had former retired Deputy Chief Sean Taylor on the show last night,
I saw part
and
of it.
they he was with Joe Flynn Thursday. They briefed an AG Paxton in Texas. Part of that information they've uncovered, and the AG up there in Colorado is tied into a lot of this questionable financial web that goes across the country. And but a lot of what they've been doing, I mean, back in the day, early last year, Fincham and I think Juan O'Savin helped to coordinate it. Joe Flynn and Mark Fincham and Sean Taylor briefed Ed Martin and others when Ed was still the acting U.S. Attorney for D.C.
Yeah.
And they're engaged a lot, and they're a lot of their information has made it down to the Florida grand juries, that grand conspiracy grand
Yeah.
jury down there, and I think there's two of them in Florida.
But
Excellent.
Matt,
So it's
this
not,
thing
I think
in
what's going to happen.
Denver, Matt, going back to Denver for a second, I agree with you. In fact, Danielle and I were talking this morning, and we sort of came to the conclusion that this has got to be more than simply a crackdown on illegal immigrants. We have illegal immigrants in every big city in the United States. There's got to be more to it than that. Maybe it's connected to Tina Peters and the corruption you just alluded to, the attorney general in Colorado. I certainly hope that it has some connection to Tina Peters and that perhaps it will result in her release at some point. It would be nice.
I hope so. And when she periodically she'll call me from prison, and she doesn't say, Matt, get me out, Matt, help. No, 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 no. What she says, like a racehorse in the starting gates, I want to help the country secure their elections.
Hmm.
I mean, she is just that kind of a person. I mean, my God, she raised a Navy SEAL, for goodness sakes, her son. I mean, so goodness gracious, that woman, she's never talking about her own plight. She's talking about, I want to help the country. And remember, when she started out on this thing, when she thought her election system was honky dory, to the tippy top, no problem, until constituents asked her, and she only got in because she wanted to fix the DMV. Who doesn't want to fix the DMV, right?
Right.
And it was her constituents who said something is wrong, and she said, I'll look, and if there's a there, I'll find it. And she listened to her constituents.
Yeah. Matt, someone who's been persecuted, not nearly to the same degree as Tina Peters, but someone who is deeply committed to election security in the United States and has sacrificed a lot is Conrad Reynolds, Colonel Conrad Reynolds
Mm.
over in Arkansas, who was arrested, I don't know, 6 or 8 months ago for some bogus electioneering charge. It just so happens that he was one of the chief challengers of the electronic voting system and did an awful lot to expose the vulnerabilities of it. A few days ago, he posts on X, and I don't know what's going on with this criminal case at this point. I assume it's pending, but he was arrested, obviously, for that. But he posts on X a few days ago, why is the Arkansas GOP fighting so hard to keep vulnerable touchscreen voting machines? Why is Sarah Huckabee not fighting for the president's agenda on election security? That jumped out at me because it reminds me very much of our Secretary of State right here in Louisiana and other politicians. What in the world? I thought Sarah Huckabee, she's a former press secretary. I thought she was all MAGA. I thought she was all in for President Trump.
We have our coalition calls every Friday, and we have Arkansas is pretty well represented by folks who know what's going on in Arkansas, and they have been sadly disappointed in Sarah Huckabee Sanders. They said she has been more opaque, more authoritarian, more draconian than her predecessor, and even Democrat governors in Arkansas. Not discernment for the audience who might be listening from Arkansas, friends in Arkansas. Sarah Huckabee Sanders is not who the outside of Arkansas thinks she is, according to the folks who know Conrad Reynolds, others there. She is not. She's not fighting for election reform. Look at Independence County, Missouri, right? No, I'm sorry, Independence County, Arkansas. They voted to go to hand-counted paper ballots, and they had a quorum court. They really didn't have the jurisdiction. They just decided we're going to. 63% of the people wanted hand-counted paper ballots. They said, nope, we're not going to do it. And that's what you're seeing in the GOP in states like Arkansas, maybe Louisiana. I don't know. I haven't heard as much, but maybe South Carolina, Utah, where Mike Lindell said it years ago, and it is, and we've seen it with candidates who ran for office, including grassroots Democrats who ran, but mostly Republicans, who said, when I got into this gig to run for whatever office, I knew the other party was going to be the opposition. I didn't know the establishment of my own party would be the enemy.
Yeah. Matt, it's just profound that, our party is founded on principles of Jeffersonian democracy. The historic feud between Thomas Jefferson and Alexander Hamilton, and Thomas Jefferson always advocating for limited, small, and frugal government and local authority whenever and wherever possible. And you have a situation in Arkansas, Independence County, that you just talked about, where 60% of the people want to go to secure hand-marked paper ballots in their county, and yet the rule from on high, the Huckabee administration in Arkansas, is that that's not going to happen. Is there anything more antithetical to what we're supposed to believe as Republicans than that? I don't think so.
Well, I think this points back to the fact that there are no political parties anymore. There are there's some ideologies, but it's just a uniparty, and it's really us against them. It's the people, we the people, Matt, versus the politicians at this point. I mean, there's a handful of good ones.
Phil Waldron. I was going to say Trump just truthed out a clip where the great Senator Doug Mastriano, he's out of Pennsylvania State Senator. I think he actually won the governor's race the last time, but Trump truthed out the clip of this was November 2020, near the end of 2020, where they're talking about absentee ballots and no signatures and 130,000 infusion of ballots. But Phil Waldron, I remember in June of 2021, he held up a dime and he said, look, this side is Republicans, that side is Democrats. But, so this is Republicans, this is Democrats. But if I hold it this way, there's not a dime's worth of difference between the two.
Right. Well said. Well said. Well said. I would say, Matt, on I do believe that the distinction is still more than entirely fictitious. I mean, if I had a choice between having a Republican majority in the U.S. Congress than a Democrat majority, I would choose the
Sure.
Republican majority. I do believe that there are
Yes.
still significant differences, but your point is well made. Too often, the leaders of our party are aligned with the opposition. It's just really unfortunate,
They
and
compromise. I mean,
and
Yeah.
they're just totally compromised.
they
But
just
that
compromise.
example, but
I mean,
stock
I
gets
get
an
you have to
affront.
work
Yeah.
together. It is, and for God's sakes, what the American people just want is steadfast to your principles. I can negotiate on policy, not on principle.
Yeah.
And that's exactly
100%.
what Jefferson said. He said, in matters of taste, you can swim like a fish. On matters of principle, you have to stand like a rock. I mean, he is essentially the intellectual founder of our party. And I think he's probably doing somersaults in his grave. There's no question. But I'm so glad that you brought that example up about Independence County, because I think it's a perfect microcosm of the problem with our party. They just do not want to allow local authorities closest to the people to make these kinds of decisions. Why not, Matt? Why were they overruled? Do you know?
Well, the root cause analysis,
I just want to
because
know
they got
why
overruled
the
because by a
Huckabee
hand counted paper
administration
ballot.
said, sorry, you're not doing this.
Yeah, because if you have hand counted paper ballots, you can't manipulate elections as easily if you have machines.
Yeah.
That's why.
Yeah. And Matt, on the subject of elections, you sent me, and I saw, we watched it this morning, both Chris and I, Susan Kokenda from Promethean Action put out an excellent video. I cannot recommend that woman enough. If you know her, we would love to interview her,
Yeah.
Matt. She is amazing. But she was detailing what
You know,
was
General Holt knows her.
okay.
I'll get you through him if you want. Yeah.
Amazing. Yeah, we would love that, because her breakdown of what Trump's election integrity video that had the what was it, 2 seconds attached at the end to a meme video with the Obamas being portrayed as apes. I mean, that video, the election integrity video with that tagged on at the end, first of all, I just think it's hysterical because it had people screaming for 2 days solid racism. That's all they could say was racism. But Trump used it obviously to be able to talk about election integrity, and she just did an excellent analysis of how um, the uniparty is really pushing already and has already started manipulating the outcome of the 2026 election. Did you have what kind of were your main takeaways from this, and what do you expect to come next really from Trump on this issue of election integrity, since he's kind of continuing the drumbeat and fanning the flames, if you will?
You know, I think as she highlighted, um, many in the election reform battle just look at not, and these are important, right? Registration, validation, tabulation, and reporting, kind of the four pillars of an election ecosystem.
Yep.
Mark talks about it in his presentations. But I think what she's highlighting is Trump is seeing that, and I think what he's trying to force is Congress to codify as much of this as possible so it's law. It's not an executive order; it is law. Voter
Yeah.
ID, proof of U.S. citizenship, limit severely mail-in ballots, right? But what she's doing, I think Trump is seeing it in the greater geopolitical scheme. How do I blunt these forces that are already trying to influence our election? And as she highlighted, candidates, and I'll ask us one thing. You know, the candidate Republican who a lot of, I call it election engineering and candidate engineering, right? They ran two Republicans initially and this Democrat and go to a runoff. But you got to ask questions like why, and then I'll get back to your answer. Why did that Republican candidate have the most progressive consultant in Texas politics as their consultant, right? Why did she run on, as Kokindis talks about, just the important but same refrain Republicans on social issues instead of focusing on the economic issues that Trump is doing. She kind of ran. She didn't embrace Trump. And why do you have the former, as she said, Michigan GOP chair telling a distance from Trump? Don't talk about Trump. That's a recipe for it. It ruined. It ruined the gentleman in Jersey running for governor. He didn't want Trump up there. Didn't want to talk about the. And what she focused on is what the economy is going to do. And look at Besant said, it is going to turbocharge this year. It is going to explode, and you're going to see jobs. You're going to see interest rates come down. You're going to see benefits. And some people here, I think the Treasury is just mailing out, like some are getting $5,000, $5,500 rebate checks because now the stuff's all caught up with the one big beautiful bill. That's beginning to hit the masses. And I think Trump is targeting this. I'm a big fan of the original Star Trek. Remember, they had the three-dimensional chess. And I do think that Trump, and as Juan would say, the people around Trump, not the Susie Wileses, but the people that encouraged him to run pre-2015, I think they're putting the chessboard pieces on place on the board, whether it's Venezuela, Cuba. Now Cuba's telling airlines, don't come here. We can't fuel you, so you could leave because we have no fuel. I mean, the pieces are being put into place, and what we got to stop doing, and I'll get off my soapbox. Sorry, it's my Irish side, is all of the circular firing squad. Bannon hates Byrne. Stone hates Bannon. People think for gosh sakes, if someone agrees with you 90% of the time and you have 10% difference, maybe they're not your enemy.
Yeah.
Maybe and I won't say who this was said about, but Juan often says this to me and others. He said, Michael Reagan, who was a dear friend of his, and Juan and his wife Jen went to Mike Reagan's funeral. Mike Reagan gave advice to Trump, said this, my dad would have given one thing to you, is this. I'm not going to say the person's name he talked about, but he said, I'll talk about one, not the other. He said, run away, don't walk from Paul Manafort and somebody else. That was Reagan's lasting words of wisdom that Reagan remembered that he imparted to President Trump.
Matt,
hold on, Chris, one second.
Ahead,
I do want to press Matt on one point. The point about the Congress, that Trump is pushing the Congress to codify some of this. How do you square that with the fact that most of these people are probably fraudulently elected, or at best case scenario cannot be validated as truly having been elected?
Well, I think certainly there's uncharted territory, right? What do we do if we prove these elections? Well, we know that they were fraudulent. How many folks are in office illegitimately? Biden was illegitimately the president, in my belief, based on what information I know with the elections of 2020. But I think what's happening is that, hey, you don't want to do this, but there's this information out here that maybe this is why you don't want to do this. So do you want to do the right? When you're dealing with a psychopath or psychopaths, right, you want to give them two choices, two that are equally bad for them, but they've got to only choose one or two. So I think what Trump's trying to do is push them into decision. It might be bad for their next generation of selected candidates to get into office, but it saves their skin. They still stay in office right now. And I think that's what he's trying to do, is have, like, Thune especially, take up this damn thing. And now you've got Eric Schmidt, you've got Mike Lee, you've got Ron Johnson, you've got Rick Scott, you've got Ted Cruz saying, kill the zombie filibuster. Just get rid of that. Just get rid of it. Because, if they don't and they lose the power, the Democrats are going to do it just like that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So President Trump, speaking of the SAVE Act, Matt, just a few days ago, he posts about it all the time because obviously he wants this to pass. He says Americans' elections are rigged, stolen, and a laughing stock over all the world. We're either going to fix them or we won't have a country any longer. I'm asking all Republicans to fight for the Save America Act, the SAVE Act. And then he goes through, the voter ID, proof of U.S. citizenship, no mail in ballots unless you're disabled or ill. Why is this a controversy in the United States Senate? Why is this not passing in the United States Senate right now?
They don't want it to pass. If they had their druthers, they don't want it to pass. They want the system as it is now is what got, I'd say, a lot of these folks in power and keeps them in power.
Yeah.
But so they're trying then to walk the fine line between appearing loyal to President Trump when in reality they have a very different agenda. And so I don't think that people are fooled anymore by all of this, by the way that they speak out of both sides of their mouth. Matt, is the SAVE Act going to pass in the U.S. Senate?
Well, I know it's going to pass the House, and the Save America Act combines several of these issues you just talked about. I think there's a great possibility it can pass the Senate if Thune nukes the zombie filibuster, which he's getting a lot of pressure on. And I would encourage the audience, look up, I don't have it with me, look up Thune's number. It's 202-224 something. I think 225 is the House, 224 is the Senate. Call him and let him know, even though he might not be your senator, he's still the majority leader of the Senate. You want him to nuke the zombie filibuster, and then it will pass. You have 51 votes. It includes, I think, including the vice president doing a tiebreaker. Already, if he nukes the zombie filibuster, you already have committed 51 votes who will pass it.
But that's essential. That is very, very important. Yeah, and we need to maybe at some point, Danielle, we can put Thune's number up on the screen, and we can ask all of our listeners and followers to call Thune's office.
Yeah, and maybe we can do a call to action on LeCag as well, Chris.
I would love to. Absolutely.
What I love about this pressure campaign on Thune to nuke the zombie filibuster is that takes away their the blanket that they're using to cover why they can't get anything done. Right. This is their the shield, and it needs to be removed. Absolutely.
And I think the American people are they're tired. I mean, the House has passed a lot of stuff. I know some folks like Mike Johnson, some don't. I know he's from your great state of Louisiana. But honestly, to give him credit where credit's due, he's passed a lot of things with a narrow majority out of the House. The Senate is like a black hole. It's just things are dying over there. And except for the one big, beautiful bill, name me one thing the U.S. Senate has done.
Yeah,
pretty much.
On the filibuster, on the filibuster, Matt, just so our listeners will know.
Look at all that stuff. They haven't done stuff on recess appointments. They could have done. Every other president has gotten into the hundreds. Trump's got 0.
Yeah. So basically, under the current rules of the filibuster, Matt, the Democrats could sit there and just prolong this indefinitely unless the Republicans could get 60 votes together to end the debate and force a vote on it. And we don't have 60 Republican votes in the Senate.
No, you have to have some Democrats. And what they want to do is just go back to the days, like if folks remember Mr. Smith Goes to Washington, and it's ironic, Chris. The Democrats, again, I'm just saying, the party of secession, the party of slavery, the party of the KKK, the party of Jim Crow laws. Republicans, none of those things, right? You said there is a difference. There is a difference, especially on slavery. The Republicans rip on Wisconsin, right? They broke, I think, with the Whigs because they were adamantly anti-slavery, right? But look at what the filibuster was brought up as a tactic in the Senate to prolong, enhance, facilitate racism, to facilitate this stuff. It was used as a weapon against predominantly blacks in the country, right after the Civil War.
Very true.
And so they're using a technique, the party that is the party of slavery, using a technique that helped propel racism against having something that would make votes free and fair for everybody. So yeah, it is not, the irony is not lost on me in how they're using a relic of a bygone time that we have moved on from and learned from to stop. So because think about it, with the amount of, with no voter ID, no proof of citizenship, and mail-in ballots, and as even Mark says, even with a mail-in ballot, even if you have signature verification with a court, certified every 2 years, I can analyze signatures. What proof do you have of who actually filled the ballot inside that envelope? There is no proof of that. So this is all they're wanting is go back to what it was, where you had to stand up and you had to keep speaking. The moment you stopped speaking because you passed out, you just couldn't do it anymore. End closure. Done. Go to vote. Republicans would get this with 51 votes, no problem.
Yeah.
I don't think history's going to be too kind. I don't think history's going to be too kind to the filibuster, to the people who are holding on to it right now. And the way that you put it out there, Matt, history is going to make it seem so obvious that was the tactic used and the people using it. Yeah.
Your vote, you, Chris, you, Danielle, you're disenfranchised if some phantom vote that's illegal is cast. That nullifies out a legal citizen's vote. That is civil rights abuse.
It is.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Matt, if it's a fair process, the 2026 midterms, despite the horrible narrative that the left is trying to paint about what's actually going on in the country, trying to villainize President Trump at every turn, if the 2026 midterms are fair and honest, these elections, do we walk away retaining the House and the Senate?
Yes. I think we actually gain seats in both.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think you're right about what you said earlier, and I couldn't agree with you more about what Susan Kokinda said. This campaign down in Texas, they're running away, that we lost by 17 points. They're running away from the economic issues entirely, totally ceding that issue to the Democrat candidate when we have the best economic president since Ronald Reagan in office right now. Why would you run away from him? But that's what they're being taught to do. The chairman of the Republican Party in Michigan, stick to the issues and avoid Trump. I mean, it's almost like they want to lose. It's almost like this is deliberate.
I think it is. I absolutely think it is.
I think it is. Yeah.
Yeah.
Matt, I think it is, because these people don't represent America's interest; they represent globalist interest.
Yeah, exactly.
And she makes that point very clear as well, that this really ultimately is a battle between globalists and those who are dedicated to principles of American sovereignty. And the only thing that's standing between the globalists and every desire of their heart is the American Constitution and American patriots. That's it. And, so fortunately, there are a lot of patriots, and we're going to win it. But I don't think they care what they have to do, Matt. Whatever they have to do to achieve that objective of a global government and the destruction of the American Constitution, I just don't think they care what it takes.
I think you're right, Chris. It's like somebody stuck in their house. Right? In law enforcement, you see some of these shows, On Patrol Live or whatever, and they're in their house and they've got a warrant for them, right? And sometimes these folks will literally burn their own house down instead of surrendering. right? And I go back, history, if it doesn't repeat, it rhymes, right? That's the great saying. When the Roman Empire was falling, the Goths and Visigoths were at the door of Rome. You had Roman senators making deals with these invaders to personally enrich themselves while they allowed their culture to collapse.
Yeah, it's true.
And we have those Quislings in our country right now doing the same thing, except for our country is not going to collapse because of great patriots like you, Matt, and others across the country. Danielle, do you have any final words for Matt today?
Yeah, I just wanted to bring up, Matt, quickly. You had talked about Tulsi. I know Fulton County has been kind of maybe shoved out of the news cycle a little bit, but Gateway Pundit has reported on either yesterday or today 40 boxes of election materials went missing, and a federal judge yesterday, I believe, ordered the unsealing of court documents in the case. And the order, I'm just going to read this here, the order requires the U.S. Department of Justice to release a redacted version of the search warrant affidavit by the close of business on February 10th, so today, while allowing redactions for non-governmental witness names. And I just thought this was such a brilliant stroke. This is my take. You could feel free to counter me, by the administration. So they sealed the warrant, and they knew that they're working with shyster judges down there, and so they go ahead and let the judge do all this work to unseal the warrant, and all it's going to do is bring this back into the news cycle and show people exactly what they're looking for.
I agree, and I know Maricopa County is currently being scrutinized right now. It's in Arizona. There's about 10 locations that are same thing's going to be happen to them, and there's a reason why. Look at if folks haven't watched, go to Carrie Lake's X feed,
Oh,
and
she is on fire right
she is
now.
on a tear. Right, you
Whew,
are
I'm not
illegitimate
going to
Secretary of
repeat
State.
some of
You
the
are an
things she
illegitimate
said.
governor. No, especially what she called the former governor. And I used to like Kasich when
That's
he was in
right.
charge of the budget in the House, but she really laid into she laid
She
into
nailed
him.
him.
Yeah.
No, but yeah, there's and remember, it was a federal judge who approved the sealed warrant for the information was provided to a federal judge. I mean, Chris will understand this as a lawyer. Provided to a federal judge. That judge signed off on it to go affect seizing of that material, the raid on that material. So it wasn't just the executive doing it willy nilly. They followed the process and they went to a federal judge.
Yeah. And this is unlike, the arrest and search warrants that were fabricated against President Trump and others. There's a real evidentiary basis for this search warrant, and I guarantee you, it is detailed meticulously in that search warrant. So I agree with you, Danielle. I think this is going to be, in a very robust way, going to buttress the administration insofar as the evidence that they have that prompted them to go in there. And I guarantee, they've got it all covered because, as you said, Matt, a federal judge did sign off on this. And ultimately, if it turns out to be, a fabricated warrant or there was not probable cause, then it's going to go back on that judge. I think that this is a net gain for the administration. There's no question. And I pray and hope that the upshot of a lot of this is some relief for Tina Peters. Like I said, I think about her every day. My heart breaks for her. Yet we continue to pray for her, for her release. I think that if she is released, there will be panic across the deep state in Colorado, and well, there should be.
Yeah. And one other thing, Matt,
And
if you have a
Chris,
minute.
the
Oh, go ahead,
real
Matt.
quickly, the folks who I was gonna say the folks who have briefed Elon and Tulsi and others in the federal government, um, there's something they said that, and this was in January of last year when I got a briefing on this, and several Mark was there, Professor Clements, Juan was there, Mac Warner, I think, was there, and some others. They said the actions that Tina Peters took, heroic actions that she took, led to the result that she was able to get with that image was the Rosetta Stone that helped them to know where to go looking. So all of these folks bring credit back to Tina Peters as her heroic actions provided the Rosetta Stone on how this was done.
Yeah.
Wow.
Amazing.
The real patriot, the real patriot in all of this, who really has sacrificed so much, and I wish the judge who presided over her case goes to jail. I hope the attorney general goes to prison, and I hope the governor goes to prison. I hope all of
the
them
Secretary
go to
of State.
prison.
Don't forget the Secretary of State, for crying out
And the
loud.
Secretary of State. I hope that when Tina is walking out, she can wave to them as they're being escorted into the detention facility. That's what I would like to see. And I believe, honestly, that the evidence is there, Matt. I believe it's there. So we're going to continue
It is.
to fight.
Peter Tickton talks about Tina real quickly. Peter Tickton, and if you like, I'll connect you with him. Get him on your show. He's a great person to have on. He said Jenna Griswold self-admitted to federal crimes for these BIOS passwords and so forth being pushed out there that would net her, that 64 counts could get her up to 64 years in federal prison. He goes, she self-admitted that.
That's so awesome.
Yeah, I remember
It is so awesome.
Danielle about that.
I hope that she does get 64 years or more. I wanted to pull out a couple points that you said before we let you go, Matt. One is you mentioned Mac Warner. You'd introduced us to him when he was Secretary of State for West Virginia. Now I believe he's working at the DOJ. And I don't know if you saw this morning, I think it was this morning, Eagle Ed Martin posted a picture of himself with Mac Warner. So I always love following Ed Martin's morning selfies with interesting people showing us kind of what he's working on, but love to see that they're working together in some way, and so proud that Mac is there doing good work for us at the DOJ.
Those are two great people, and it was the evening of September 4th last year in a home. By the way, if you get a chance, I'll 27 June. We're going to have we had an event there in January of last year, right after the inauguration. Patrick Byrne was there. It was kind of like a birthday bash. About 35 people show up, including Martine Rodil, otherwise known as Zorro. He's now come out publicly. He's worked with Gary Burnson and Patrick Byrne and others.
Yeah.
But 27 June, we're going to have an event that you guys need to come to. That's a Saturday. Kind of a reunion of all election integrity warriors there. Hopefully, Tina's out and she comes.
Amazing.
But at that evening, Ed Martin stopped by. Ed Mac Warner was there. It was September 4th of last year, evening time. Ed Martin stopped by. We're in the kitchen of this person's home, and I'm sitting here. Patrick Byrne is here. Mac Warner is here. And Patrick, impassioned, talking to Ed Martin about election stuff. And I love this. This shows the soul of Ed Martin. He said, look, he says, you're pushing to the choir, brother. He goes, I know a lot of folks get in the DOJ to punch their ticket to go on to something else. He goes, that ain't me. He said, we got three at that point, 3.5 years left to go. I'm in it for the mission. I'm not in it to punch my ticket. That's Ed Martin.
Love that. I absolutely
Thank God
love
he's there.
that. Yeah. And one last thing I want to pull out, if you have a minute, Matt, because I wanted to get your thoughts on this. The wall-to-wall coverage of the Samantha Guthrie's mom's supposed kidnapping, it is astounding to me. So for the last probably 3 to 5 days, all you can see on Fox primetime and the other big news primetimes is coverage of this. It's gotten more coverage than Trump's assassination attempt. It's gotten more coverage than almost anything. And all I can think of is, what is it distracting people from? It's stopping them from talking about what's coming out in the Epstein files. And it's stopping them from talking about what's actually coming out with respect to Fulton County and all of the election integrity efforts. Do you have any thoughts or insights on this? I mean, it is a psyop. I'm not saying that the woman wasn't kidnapped. Perhaps she was, perhaps she wasn't. But to me, the coverage of it is so over the top that it's got to be covering over something.
I just I go back to this, right?
Mm-hmm.
Is I'm not a police officer, not law enforcement, an investigator, but doesn't it doesn't make a lot of sense. All the facts just don't seem to add up. Now, evidently they paid. I don't know if they, supposedly they're going to pay the 6 million in Bitcoin, so that deadline's come and gone. But what I find interesting is why initially did local law enforcement thwart efforts for the FBI to help them? That came out yesterday. I saw in the news.
Wow.
Local law enforcement kind of poo-pooed FBI, didn't want their help. Why would you not want help from? And as Cash came on, a lot of the shows said, "Hey, look, local law enforcement is leading. They're leading the investigation. We're there to assist them." But something. I'm not a tinfoil hat guy, but a lot of conspiracies are no longer conspiracies. But things like the Butler shooting, right? The guy at the golf course in Pennsylvania a couple weeks later, the Charlie Kirk assassination, this kidnapping, it doesn't feel right. Something more is there that we're not privy to, and it just feels off to me. I don't know what it is, but it feels off. Yeah. And they want to focus your attention on it. Focus here. I hope to God she's safe. I hope nothing bad has happened to this woman, but it feels like, here in the casinos, you get the magic shows, right? Look, and then they do something over here because you're looking over here. So I'm torn. Is that what is happening that they want all of our attention, especially Fox News? Gosh darn it! I wish you would have given this much attention to election interference.
Exactly.
Equally important for the whole state. I know this woman is it's travesty. It's Savannah Guthrie. She's a national figure. I get it. But as a news agency, you can walk and chew gum at the same time, I hope.
Yeah.
Well, although that's becoming increasingly questionable, Matt.
Yeah. And like my mom was saying, you can have a 5-10 minute segment, but does it need to be the entire show? Last night, the entire show was either Samantha Guthrie's mom or Bad Bunny, Come on. There's a lot more to going on in the world than those two things.
You didn't ask about this, but Bad Bunny, I like probably now 40 or 50 million, I think. I tuned over to the Kid Rock. I mean, I said on our show last night, the best day about Super Bowl Sunday was, and Warren, my co-host, he's friends with Kid Rock, right? He's good friends with him. And actually his cousin is Jelly Roll, believe it or not.
Really?
Warren's cousin is Jelly Roll. And I said the best thing I saw on Super Bowl Sunday was Robert Ritchie, his real name, put that on the stage, and he had that added verse to, taking the chance until you can't, do it until you can't. And he talked about Christ, the cross, second chances until you can't. That to me was the most powerful event of Super Bowl Sunday.
Yeah.
Wow. That's what it's all about. Matt, second chances until you can't. It's interesting you say that, Matt, because, the devil and our adversaries in this fight right here on earth, they want to cripple people with their mistakes from the past. They want to paralyze people and constantly remind them of their mistakes. And Satan does that very, very well. In order to throw us off and undermine our ability to do real good. We just have to remember, as Danielle reminds me often, that the whole story of Christ and God's salvation, the salvation story, is a story of failure, redemption, recovery, and ultimate vindication in a way that only God can orchestrate. And we have to remember that. It's all about redemption and power.
Look at Saul. Saul was probably the most vicious persecutor of Christians, and his whole life flipped in one big shining light.
Very much so. Well, Matt and Meck, Semper Fidelis. I have my one of my sons is seriously considering it. My 18-year-old considering the Marine Corps. So at some point offline, I'm going to coordinate a conversation with you and him, so you could share some wisdom with him and talk with him if you don't mind.
No problem. Would love to.
Yeah. God bless you, sir. Keep up the good fight, and we will talk soon.
God bless. Thank you for all you do. In Louisiana, you have the best food in the nation.
No doubt about it. You did miss.
We do have the best food.
I was hoping you'd come down with Mark so you could enjoy some good seafood, but you're just going to have to come another time, Matt.
Hey, you're a Louisiana native son. Tommy Waller came out to here. Gosh, it was 2020, and man, he brought out some oysters and cooked up. He brought them out in dry ice packages, and some steaks. And oh my God, one he's the head of Center for Security Policy now, but that man can cook. Oh boy.
Awesome.
He's a great, just a great, great guy. Had the pleasure of meeting him a couple of times right here when he was testifying in the legislature, and just one of those guys who just bleeds red, white, and blue, and love him. And obviously a U.S. Marine as well.
Yeah, and he was force recon. He was the that's the men's department of the men's department of the Navy.
Although, you know what the Army guys say, Matt, and these guys, they say, look, at least the U.S. Army was not founded in a bar. They said that the U.S. Marine Corps was, you know the story. You know the story. Yeah. I say, well, look, that, as far as I'm concerned, that's a good thing.
It is. You know what Army stands for, Chris?
What?
Ain't real Marines yet.
Love you, man. God bless.
God bless the U.S. Army. God bless them. We services, we fight with each other, but no one better mess with us collectively, because we'll defend every service.
That's exactly what the Brigadier General that we had on recently, Blaine said. He said, you know, we can do all this among ourselves, but there's not an inch between us when we're facing a common enemy. Yep. Not an inch between us. That's what he said. Yeah.
Yep. Agreed. 100%.
Thank you, sir.
Love you, Matt.
Thank
we'll
you.
Talk
guys
soon.
Have a great day.
Thank you. You too.
God bless.
God bless you. I always love having Matt on, and it's my fault that we went over, because I just wanted to talk to him about some InfoWars stuff, because I know he's so deep in that.
Yeah, it was and it was important stuff, and he's got he always has such great insights. I love him. You know, he's one of my probably top 3 favorite guests that we have on.
Yeah. You know. He's done so much for our show. I mean, he's introduced us to incredible people, including Brigadier General Blaine Holt, who we'll be having on again probably in a couple weeks, I think in early March, for folks who enjoyed that interview. I was blown away by his candor. And Matt's the same. He's not pulling any punches, and he's not trying to say the PC lines or stick with the establishment narrative. He can see what it is, and he's not afraid to talk about it. So I just think that's
totally
so excellent.
Agree.
I hope soon.
Matt's such a good friend. Matt is just such a good friend to us.
He is.
And to our show.
Chris, do you want to talk a little bit about the bone that you went down to the legislature to gnaw on yesterday?
Absolutely. Yeah, it was extremely important. It was the task force on protecting Louisiana's infrastructure against foreign interference. That's a long name. And obviously there are bad foreign actors who would like to take out our infrastructure in any possible way they can. So Valerie Hodges, to her credit, Senator Hodges convened a task force made up of other representatives from the legislature and a few private citizens as well. And they had Chris Holton of Center for Security Policy there, and several other experts who testified. And, I testified, and it was in several points that we recommended to the task force. The first thing that they need to do, in light of all the evidence, is recommend that Nancy Landry halt any further action on spending $150 million on electronic voting equipment in light of all the evidence that is coming out across the board about how vulnerable these computers are. Don't appropriate another dime for this purpose. Clean up HB 693 that you and I railed about from last session, which provides this glaring loophole as to about who is a foreign national and who isn't, who is prohibited from donating lots of money to Louisiana campaigns and ballot propositions right here in Louisiana. In Mark Wright's bill from last session, there's this glaring loophole that allows foreign corporations to donate and participate in Louisiana elections just by filing their paperwork with the Secretary of State and being authorized to do business in Louisiana.
That's it. That takes like 5 minutes to do if anyone's
5 minutes and a few $100s.
Yeah.
Whereas the bill is being paraded as this, big bill to protect us from foreign interference in our elections. Also in his bill, Danielle, permanent residents who are not U.S. citizens can donate and participate in our elections. That bill has to be cleaned up. One of the experts who testified yesterday said that bill has to be cleaned up. It's got to be done. So that was our recommendation number 2. And the third recommendation that we made, what was the third recommendation? It was 693, the voting, and then I can't think of the third recommendation that I made.
It was the installations near the military installations.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes. Thank you. Senator Valerie Hodges' bill, and I brought it up, SB 226 from last session, that was killed right there in the Republican Judiciary Committee, that would have statutorily authorized Louisiana to expropriate, that is, reclaim any immovable property that's currently owned by a foreign adversary if that property is located within 50 miles of a military installation or other critical infrastructure. That bill was killed last session in Senate Judiciary Committee with Comrade Greg Miller, Republican, leading the charge. So that's number 3 that has to be re-urged and that has to be codified, because right now there's a gaping hole in our defense posture here in Louisiana against foreign threats. So those 3 things: suspend the purchase of these vulnerable computer-based voting machines, do something about HB 693 to completely shut off foreign participation money-wise in our elections, and pass the bill that prohibits that, or that allows Louisiana to expropriate and reclaim immovable property if it's owned by our foreign adversaries within 50 miles. These are no-brainers, Danielle, no-brainers. And one other recommendation that we made was somebody needs to bring a bill, and we're going to push this, the same thing that Thomas Presley brought 2 or 3 years ago, to specifically require any component of any voting computer or voting system in Louisiana to be manufactured exclusively by an American manufacturer, an American company. No more foreign component parts. That's also a no-brainer. That was an amendment that was brought by Thomas Presley to a bill 2 or 3 years ago and was killed on the Senate floor. These are not things that should be remotely controversial, not even the electronic voting machines at this point. We are even past the point where anybody should be legitimately arguing that these computers are not acutely vulnerable to manipulation. There is no argument on the other side of that at this point. So that needs to stop, especially in light of recent developments. These are no-brainer issues. We're going to be pushing these hard, Danielle, and these were our recommendations to the task force yesterday, and we're following up with formal recommendations in the form of a letter. Louisiana Republican Assembly, LeCag, and you and I will discuss the State of Freedom possibly joining in that request as well. But these are things that have got to change. I do want to applaud Senator Hodges for convening that task force. Thanks to Chuck Owen for his participation in it. I know he is very serious about protecting our infrastructure here. Dodie Horton is on the committee. Emily Chenevere is on the committee, and a couple of others. We have good relationships with all of them.
Yeah. And Chris, we can talk about this more offline, but just one concern about even the U.S. manufacturer of voting equipment is that Dominion was just bought by Liberty Vote, which is, I mean, ostensibly, quote unquote, now an American company, but it's still got globalist interests and it's still vulnerable. So I think that's something we probably need to kind of dig into before making that recommendation.
Yeah, well, what we're saying is the component parts. It's
Yeah.
not only that the vendor has to be domiciled in the U.S. The parts themselves have to be made and manufactured in the United States.
Yeah.
That's the catch. Again, Danielle, there are probably ways around it, but why not have the law in place to prohibit it? That's the point.
Okay. Well, a couple of announcements. First, thank you for testifying yesterday, Chris, and thank you for bringing a great readout of that. I'm so grateful that we're continuing this conversation, that Senator Hodges didn't just, she didn't tuck tail and run after being browbeat by people in the legislature who just did an embarrassing job of representing anyone. And as they killed her bill mercilessly last session, that would have put us in a very different posture this year. So
Oh,
a
by the
big,
way, I have to say this.
Mhm.
By the way, after the Secretary of State, Nancy Landry, led her to believe that she would be amenable to her bill.
Yeah,
And therefore, Senator Hodges said that LeCag and other advocates did not need to testify in favor. So she was misled by the Secretary of State, who really stabbed her in the back right
yeah,
there at the committee table. That's
yeah.
what occurred, and that needs to be known as well.
Yeah, no, it's a great point, Chris. A couple of announcements before we go. One, if you are not yet a subscriber to the State of Freedom, but you appreciate what we're doing and you want to support our work here, you want to support us keeping the lights on, please go ahead and subscribe. You can do so for as little as $10 a month at join.freedomstate.us. I'll put that up here on the screen. Let me see right here. And then tomorrow on For the Love of Freedom, I'll be having Adam Hartage, who is a former clandestine. I'm having trouble with my words today. Clandestine operator. And he had worked closely with General Flynn. And he has a new book out about how parents should be talking to their kids and working with their kids with respect to AI. So it's a fantastic book. It's like a guidebook, a field manual. He describes it more than kind of it's not just to sit down and read it in one shot book. But anyway, it's a fantastic book. And so we'll be talking about that tomorrow. And then on Thursday, Chris, we have Representative Danny McCormick coming on, and he will be talking about, I believe, carbon capture. Anything else on his agenda? Maybe Second Amendment?
Oh, well, I want to talk to him about his Second Amendment bill. You remember he was one of our first guests, Danielle. Two or
Yeah.
3 years ago, he came on and talked about his omnibus Second Amendment bill. I loved the language of that bill. I haven't looked at his new Second Amendment bill, but if it's anything like that one, I can tell you we are going to be emphatically supporting it. And hopefully, his Second Amendment bill, again, I haven't looked at it yet, hopefully will take care of the problem with the current concealed carry law in Louisiana, which you and I have discussed. And it's not commonly known that under current Louisiana law, permitless constitutional carriers, pursuant to the law that was passed in 2024, do not have the same civil liability protections that permitted carriers have. In other words, those who've gone and paid the government and gotten permission to carry their gun, they have greater protection civilly from lawsuits than constitutional carriers, law-abiding citizens who don't have the government's permission to carry their gun. We're going to talk about that more in detail on another show, Danielle, but there is a gaping hole in Louisiana law right now, which defeats the whole purpose of constitutional carry in Louisiana. We're going to ask Danny McCormick about that when he comes on and ask him whether or not his new bill will take care of that issue.
Yeah, and I'm sure that all of our viewers would be very shocked to know that the reason there's a gaping hole is because of money.
The gaping hole because of money, because the Louisiana State Police makes millions of dollars every year off of payments for concealed carry permits in Louisiana. So once again, in Louisiana, a core constitutional freedom, which purportedly was addressed through SB 1 in 2024, was not really fully addressed and arguably puts permitless carriers in a worse position than they were in before if they have to use their gun and they don't have a permit. So we're going to talk about that, Danielle. You and I have railed against that. And every time I start talking about this issue, Danielle, I think about your words. What part of thou shalt not infringe do you not understand?
That's right. That's right. I won't get on my soapbox because you might not be able to drag me off of it, Chris. I'll save that for Thursday.
Oh, believe me, there's no question. I would be absolutely hopeless.
Awesome. Well, thanks, Chris. It's been a great show. Loved having Matt on. Loved chatting with you. Any final thoughts before we close out for today?
I just want to remind people with as much sincerity as I possibly can muster to share and subscribe and support the State of Freedom. We can bypass their traditional legacy media, the suppression, the censorship. You don't have to worry anymore about whether what you are hearing is the truth and based upon facts and evidence anymore. We're going to bypass all of that if we continue to expand our reach. And we do that with you sharing, subscribing, and supporting the State of Freedom. If we have people following the State of Freedom in every corner of Louisiana, you will no longer be lied to with impunity. You'll no longer be fooled with impunity, and you will no longer feel betrayed by your government and by your legacy media. We are your pipeline to truth, your portal to freedom and liberty. Know that and believe that and share and subscribe the State of Freedom, because it is our trajectory is only up, and we want you to be with us for the ride.
Amen. Well said, Chris. Awesome. I'm pumped up now. Thank you.
God bless you, Danielle.
God bless you, Chris.
Take care. Blanco Brothers has been in business in Louisiana for about 30 years now. I have personal experience with this company, and I know others who have as well. If you have a business or a home and you've got roofing, gutter, sheet metal issues at all, one number you need to know, and that's Blanco Brothers Construction. He will treat you right financially, and he will take very good care of you with regard to the quality of the service that he provides. I cannot recommend Blanco Brothers Construction more highly enough. Memorize the number 225-226-4222. Blanco Brothers Construction, the very best in the business. Fuego, it's just unbelievable. Whether it's the flame-grilled carne asada or a signature mango margarita, I had one of those too. They're serving up a literal feast of freedom at Calle Fuego. It's just extraordinary. I love the owners, Andres and Jose. They run such a great restaurant. The service is extraordinary. The atmosphere is great. So if you're in Pineville and the Alexandria area or passing through, or if you live there, go to Calle Fuego and tell them the State of Freedom sent you.
Thanks for joining us today on the State of Freedom. Be sure and check out the show notes for this episode. You can always go there and find the calls to action and resources mentioned in the show, and you can find out more information about our advertisers there as well. If you want to learn more about us or support our work, visit freedomstate.us. To get involved with Louisiana Citizen Advocacy Group, visit lacag.org. We'll see you next time. God bless.